This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations.
We want families to come here and gain insightful strategies that empower them to successfully teach diverse learners at home.
Hosted by founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool, Peggy Ployer.
Our goal is that these powerful weekly conversations will boost your confidence to cultivate the best at-home learning environment for your student.
For more homeschool resources, go to spedhomeschool.com. You're listening to Empowering Homeschool Conversations with Peggy Ployer.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Today, we're going to talk about unleashing your students' learning potential, the ultimate approach. And my guest today is Andee. I forgot to even ask you how to say your last name. I'm going to ask you now to say it.
Yes, it's just Martineau. It's that EAU, that French O that throws everybody off. It's simple, but confusing looking.
Awesome. Well, thank you for correcting me on that.
You are welcome.
Yes, Andee's a parenting coach and mom of 6 who specializes in helping parents all over the world raise kids without yelling, tantrums, or bribes, using her ultimatums, using her connect method parenting techniques. She's taught thousands of moms to feel more in control of family life, stress life, and to get their kids to listen and more. Andee's a former registered nurse who brings her clients years of hands-on experience raising her own children and coursework in developing developmental psychology, as well as in certifications of life coaching and integrative health coaching. And also you are, you have a podcast and a book, and I'll have you talk about those later on. And you live in Utah, is that correct?
That's where I live now. I'm from Arizona. We moved here during COVID because I wanted seasons and water. And so this was the closest place to stay close to home. But yeah, so this is where we are for now. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show, and I think you bring a lot of wealth of wisdom. So a lot of parents, they have homeschooling specific questions, and I know you're a homeschooler too. But a lot of times our homeschooling issues focus on relational issues and family issues. And we tend to forget that because we're so focused on the child and the learning. And so today we're going to kind of take a step back with Andee and kind of dig a little bit deeper as to where some of these issues might be starting from, and maybe how we can start resolving them. A lot of times we want to resolve like the top issues instead of digging down deeper. And so I'm excited for this conversation. I love to ask my guests when they first come on the show, just to share a little bit about themselves, their story, and why they're so passionate specifically about the topic that we're going to be talking about. So feel free to share, anything about your homeschooling journey, or just your parenting journey, life journey, that has led to this.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I had 6 kids in 8 years, which was absolutely, I don't know what I was saying. I mean, I'm so glad now they're 24 to 15. So super fun now, but when they were all little, really, really crazy. And it was right around the time I had number 6 that's when I decided to homeschool. So you throw that on top of all of these 6 children. My oldest is 8. Let's homeschool. It was just quite the adventure, and especially stepping away from being a nurse where I felt really accomplished and really in control. And people were saying, thank you so much. I mostly did labor and delivery. So it was, thank you for helping us deliver this baby. And it was just this lovely place to feeling as though I had entered a new career that I was completely unqualified for, and was being reminded every day of how, many skills I lacked. and I was yelling a lot. I was yelling because my nervous system, I mean, at the time, I didn't know why. I thought I was just I was a complete disaster, let's be honest. But my nervous system was elevated. I was always on edge. I had expectations that were completely, not realistic to what was happening in my life at the time. And it all culminated. I have this gray baby powder blizzard of 2008 where like, I feel like, or 7, I messed the year up. It was in 2007 where my kids got the Costco sized bottle of baby powder, doused the playroom, like ruined our DVD player, which was
Oh
a
my
big deal because
gosh.
there was no streaming TV back then, so that was like
Right.
the one
Yeah.
way we
Yep.
could relax and watch a Disney movie together or something.
Mhm.
Ruined the DVD player, just made a disaster, ruined some toys, dumped it all over their little brother. Yeah, it was just a mess. And I went in and I completely lost it. And then I
Mhm.
looked down at my 3-year-old, he's now 20, which is so crazy, my 3-year-old's face, and he went from so ecstatic, like, look at this huge, beautiful creation we made. We were in Arizona, so snow,
Oh.
he loved snow, always has
Oh.
loved snow. He made a snow, a blizzard in here.
Right.
He was so excited. And I started yelling and he, just started crying. And I had this, what is only I can equate it to something like a personal miracle, because I completely didn't deserve this. I didn't earn this. I wasn't equipped to create this for myself, but I was able to have a moment of calm come over me, and clarity and perspective, and to realize this isn't a problem. It's okay. And like looking back, it's like, well, obviously it wasn't a problem and it was okay. But in the moment, it wasn't okay.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
was like
Yeah.
back on me again, more evidence that this is not your, where you should be spending any time or attention.
Right.
But to be able to have this moment where like, oh, when I got calm and I stopped yelling and I had given out, you don't get to play with friends and we're going to bed at 5 o'clock, and all of the
Right.
ultimatums and the consequences and everything. And when
Mhm.
I stripped those all back and just connected with them, everything worked out more peacefully. We got the house cleaned up really quickly. They were
Yeah.
cooperative. And I had this moment where I thought, what in the world just happened? I must figure
Right.
this out. And, being from the scientific background, I was like, I got to find the research because I need this
Yeah.
supported scientifically to show me
Hmm.
that I can let go of consequences, punitive consequences. Typically, that's what we
Right.
do as parents.
Mhm.
They're not like a beautiful connective consequence. So
Right.
I need to prove that I can let those go, that I don't need ultimatums, that I don't need to control and, for lack of a better word, manipulate. I wasn't trying to manipulate, but that's really what I was doing. I was trying to
Right.
control my environment so much.
Mhm.
But I needed to know that this lined up with scripture, it lined up with science, and it was
Mhm.
actually a viable solution to
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
life, and that sent me on a journey. And then
Mm.
it was not perfect. I still messed up. It was really,
Right.
really messy. Started bringing the kids home. But what happened was I found the science and data, which was so helpful, found the support,
Mm.
that I needed, to feel like this was in alignment with, what
Right.
I would say God would allow and be okay with.
Mhm.
And it was able to lean into that. And
Mm.
my homeschooling was so different because I was learning slowly to let go of control, to focus on relationships, and to have a belief that this is what I wanted to do. This was actually in alignment with love and peace and connection, and going to make everything easier, not harder. Because at first it felt
Right.
very naked to let go of everything. It
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, I'm letting go of all of the tools I know. This is going to
Right.
very
Exactly.
poorly. I felt very
Mhm.
passive, like I was slanting in the passive place, but
Mm.
I'm a very type A, very driven
Right.
person. So I didn't know how to balance this, but
Yeah.
eventually
Yeah.
figured it out. So that's a little bit about me, and it just propelled me into
Yeah.
parenting. Well, I was already propelled into parenting, but propelled me
Yeah.
into like researching about parenting and
Mhm.
developmental psychology and attachment theory and how does this work and how am I going to be ultimately responsible as a homeschool mom, ultimately responsible not just for their emotional development, but for their
Right.
educational development and
Mhm.
growth. And I needed to be able to know I was going to be able to satisfy all of those things. So here I am today. I never would have predicted this. This is not like what I put on
Right.
my,
Yeah.
plan. But one thing led to another, and I started
Right.
teaching people, then wrote a book, now have a podcast, and it's just such an honor. It feels
Mm.
as though I'm just a conduit for something that's coming through, and I'm not trying to take any, this isn't me
Yeah.
creating it. It's just like
Mhm.
I am teaching something that I feel like is true, and if it resonates with people, I'm so grateful to be able to share it with them. So that's a little bit about me. Sorry if that went all over the place.
Yeah.
And
No, that's
and
really good. It's good for our audience to kinda know how they can connect with you, and it is from those desperate places, those places where we run out of ourselves, that when yet we have those aha moments, and they're life changing, and they're life changing in
Right.
a way that affects not only ourselves but our families, if we allow them to teach us instead of falling into that trap of guilt where you could have gone.
Well, I did
And so that's a
sometimes.
beautiful story. Yeah, well, yeah,
Thank
I know
you.
we all go back there.
Not helpful, but
So,
yeah, I do dip my toe. I am normal.
yeah.
A normal, imperfect human, but it's not, you're absolutely right. It's not healthy to stay there, nor does guilt
Mm.
propel us into ultimately where we need to go is we have to get out of it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for mentioning that.
absolutely. That's, so good. So, yeah, you, um, you call this, connect, method
Yeah.
of parenting.
Yeah.
What specifically defines that, or what are the parameters that you kind of, try to help parents to understand, I guess, the bigger picture of what we're talking about?
Yeah, great question. I'll try my best to succinctly say this. Sometimes I get so excited, I just can't stop talking. So cut me off whenever.
No,
But I
that's
would
really good.
say I would say it's learning how to, for lack of a better word, leverage connection instead of correction. So I'm
Mm,
not saying we don't give feedback to our kids. They definitely need feedback,
right.
but the slant of Western society tends to be overly like a critical fixing, something's
Mm,
broken kind of correction energy. Um,
right.
and so I say that, and it can be very polarizing, but it's important because I think we need to be pushed a little bit more to say, no, like this relationship you have, if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And
Mhm.
that's really where it's at. And one of my favorite psychologists, if anybody wants to go look him up, highly recommend Dr. Gordon Neufeld. He has a beautiful book called Hold On to Your Kids. And he is a theorist. He's taken, devoted his whole life, or a good chunk of his life, to really dive into what does it look like to be the parent that we want to be for our kids so that they truly fulfill their potential. And oftentimes we think that discipline is the essence of parenting, but it's really
Mm,
creating an environment where our kids can thrive. That's the essence of parenting, because our kids
right.
are these little seeds,
Mm,
and we get to just somehow we don't get even told what they are. They feel like they come to us and
right.
we're like, "Are you an oak
Yes.
tree? Or are you a rose plant, a rose bush?" I actually don't know. So we're gonna figure
Yes.
this out together. It's
I
gonna
love
get
that.
messy. I'm gonna put you in full
Mhm.
sun, and if you need partial shade, we'll figure that out. And I'm so
We'll see.
sorry that you got
Right.
a little bit burned right there.
Yeah.
And so we're trying our best, and pretty soon we
Mhm.
start to get the hang of each child's needs. They're slightly different than the other,
Right.
child that we have. But
Mhm.
you juxtapose that, now I would say that's the attachment connection based parenting framework, is really this honoring the beauty that our kids that they come, as a beautiful soul that's here to develop, and our job is to just allow that to emerge, versus
Right.
what I call Western, or behavior modification,
Mm,
behavioralism,
mhm.
parenting. It's more like the parent is the sculptor, and they're this hard piece of marble, and we're just like, I
Right.
gotta like chisel this rough place away. Oh my gosh, that looks terrible. I gotta fix that too.
Mm,
And we are sometimes imposing our will upon this child slash piece of marble in this analogy, and
right.
also taking all the responsibility for the masterpiece that's being created, instead of
Mm,
stepping away and saying, you are a masterpiece in and of yourself, and I'm just here to help that come out however I possibly can, so that you can go do your thing in the world. I have no idea who
right.
you're going to be or what you're going to be. I have some ideas of values I want to help you know. I want to
Mhm.
have some ideas I would love to impart upon you. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I don't know if you want to be a painter or an attorney or, an engineer. I have no idea. Or a homeschooling mom,
Right.
which my
Mhm.
mom did not think that I should be that at first. Let's just be clear. No, she's very supportive now, but like she was nervous. She's like, wait, what are you
Oh.
doing? You know? So, it's releasing so much control and really
Mhm.
trusting in the inherent goodness of our children, and realizing that the way we impart our values, the things that matter to us, is by them choosing to listen to us. We can't
Right.
force anything. The
Mm-mm.
little toddlers, or not even toddler, the little 8-month-old spits out the peas. They're telling you, You cannot force this food into my mouth if I don't want it. And it just escalates from there by the time they're teenagers. If they haven't chosen us to be their leader, forget about it. They are going to let us know. And so creating that relationship so that they want to be good for us. They want to listen to us. They choose us. And without that influence, we have really nothing, nothing. And so the attachment or connect method parenting, as in my own little spin and twist and secret recipe of it, is just really figuring out, how do I look at my own thoughts on my own nervous system and clean myself up so I can show up in a way that isn't judgmental of my kids, isn't too pushy or controlling or manipulative. I'm not bringing my own agenda, in a detrimental way towards them. And then am I investing in the relationship really well? Am I actually doing something to be known, to see them, to help them feel safe and heard and trusted and know that I'm on their team? And am I responding in a way when things do go off track? Because they will. Their kids are going to go off. They're going to have behavior go off track. Our nervous system is going to go off track. Can I respond in a way that I can respect that my nervous system is regulated? And so those are really the things that the pillars, I would say, those 3 pillars of like, understand your own mind, consistently connect, and choose to stay close, even when the behavior is off track or you feel like there really bad choices are being made. Can I do those 3 things? Am I working on those 3 things? And if we are doing those 3 things, then the likelihood is so much better that everything's going to go smooth, not perfectly smooth. There will be bumps in the roads. We're going to have a bill hit us that stresses us out, or our kids are going to have a friend say something that makes them dysregulated. All that's going to happen, but I'm going to be able to handle all of it with confidence and kindness and calmness and connectedness.
Yeah. It all starts with us then.
It does. Yeah, I know. So many parents that couldn't work with me, they're like, I thought we were going to talk about the kids, but at the end of this, I'm realizing this is all, we're starting here with me. It's really all about me. And I'm like, yes, that's really the truth of it. And it's humbling, but really powerful when we realize, hey, I do have more control in this situation than I think. It's just all here instead of control over the kids. But when we show up and we're looking at ourselves, it's crazy what happens with the kids. Those mirror neurons start firing off messages to the kids, and they are so much more likely, at least they have the opportunity to rise up to a different place with us if we can set that tone. And so even though it's like, can feel a little humbling or a little, wow, really, it's me? It's actually the best news ever, because at least you have the ability to do something about that.
Exactly. So, yes. Yeah. Like you said, that at very young age, we learn we can't control them, and they have choice of their own. Yes, exactly. We can influence, we can love, and we can show them what it looks to live in that peace and that joy and all those things, but they have to choose that. And so what are some things as parents are kind of listening to this and going, okay, so if I need to change, how do I figure out what I need to change? How does is there a first steps to even to self-evaluate, I guess, or to look at what's going on in my house and how could it be something that maybe I need to change versus I need to change about my kids, because that's been my total focus. And I've been like reading every book that
get them to we get in these do their schoolwork.
It's like, yes, exactly. Do their schoolwork, do
their chores, all the things. Yeah. So I would say first steps is to just look at ourselves, like we've said, but what that practically looks like is start noticing when you have, it comes 2 different ways, either the thought or emotion. It doesn't matter which entry point you come in, because they're related. So when am I feeling really irritated, frustrated, annoyed, upset at my kids? You want to look at every one of those thoughts, because your brain's automatically going to say, and not everybody's going to still be here, but if we're left to our own devices, our brains are going to say, it's the kids' fault. I'm annoyed because they didn't make their bed. I'm annoyed because they didn't do their homework. And even though, yes, ultimately we want them to be successful and clean their room and do their homework and do the responsible things, before we can even have that conversation with them in a productive way that lights up their intrinsic motivation, where they actually decide to start doing it, we really need to look at, why am I judging them? Usually there's some fear. Like, I'm afraid they're going to be
Yes.
sloppy messes, and they're going to have a roommate down the road, and it's going to whatever. They're not going to be able to be
Right.
successful at
Yeah.
their job because they're so disorganized, or they're not going to learn their math. And then I'm going to look like a failure as a mom because I didn't figure out how to teach them their math or whatever. So what is
And
the
those are
fear?
self-perpetuating lies too, that
Right.
when we believe them, we actually move towards them, and we forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because our brain is now looking for evidence to prove our belief system. So if I believe my kid's lazy or disorganized or whatever the adjective that you're using in your
Right.
mind, the more you believe that, the more, that's all you're going to that's all your brain's going to see, because it's filtering out all of this stuff that's in
Good.
opposition to it. It just needs to prove that this story is the truth so that you can be sane. And questioning it sometimes throws our brains for a loop. I remember one time I said this with this mom, she's so amazing, but she was like, "No, Andee, you don't understand. My kids are very defiant. They're very rude." No, it was disrespectful. They're very disrespectful. And I'm like, what if disrespectful isn't even a thing they can be? And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, I'm not saying that their words are in a tone that you would like to change. I'm not saying that. But what if you saw their words as, "Oh, my kids are really possibly, we're going to throw out some hypotheses here. Maybe they're really struggling. Maybe they're really stressed. Maybe they are really just annoyed at you because the relationship's not very good. Maybe you said something last night, or maybe they're behind on their homework, or some other gamut of, who knows, like there could be so many things. But if we give them if we bring the possibility to the forefront, like that could be possible. It could mean something completely different. And it's not that they're being, rude or defiant or, disrespectful is what she said. It doesn't mean that. It just means they're really struggling right now. Their nervous system is very activated, and that those words they're saying is just evidence it's a symptom, you could say, even to support the truth of what's happening inside of them. And when we can see it like that, oh, okay, then I get to interpret it different. So now I'm like, oh, it's not that they're being disrespectful. They're just struggling right now. So now I'm not triggered. So now I reflect back to them something. I might even say, hey, we can't talk like that. But now I'm not saying it in a defensive way, like, oh my gosh, you guys are just way out of line. Like, and now I'm matching their emotional, they're sending out this emotional dysregulation. I'm matching it with my emotional dysregulation. And now we're just two nervous systems that are like, boom, 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 and so when we can start to say, what if it's true? What if it's possibly true that my kid's behavior is not the thing making me upset? It's my interpretation of their behavior that's making me upset. And the reason I want to look at that is because if I look at that, I can change my interpretation of it, which changes the way I show up in the situation, which changes their whole, relationship to me, the whole experience we have in that moment together. And then I give them the opportunity to be dysregulated with a mother who's not dysregulated, who's holding space for them, who's saying, hey, I'm here for you. I get that you're struggling right now. Whether I'm saying these words or I'm just thinking them, I'm here. I got your back. I love you. This behavior is not who you are. It's not indicative of who you are. It doesn't define you.
Yeah.
How can I help you? That experience for them will be so different. And the opportunity that they are given, and maybe they won't do it in the moment, but you do it enough times that their nervous system will be like, oh, okay, I can get this emotion out. I can get this, out, and I can move through it. And mom's a safe place to process this frustration I'm feeling. And she's not another person for me to get frustrated with. I can actually hear it, and we can connect, because we can show up for our kids when they're dysregulated. Holy cow. Like that is their nervous systems are like, well, this is a safe person. I really love this person. I can let them see all the parts of me that are, bad or dark, whatever, that aren't the good parts, and I can work through them, and she's not going to judge me. Like, I know that I am acceptable to her, even if my behavior at the time is unacceptable. And that's so empowering.
It is.
So it starts just inspecting here. And then, there's so many, like, then I'm going to start connecting better with them. And then I'm going to be able to respond better in the moment. So that was a very long answer. I'm so sorry. So hopefully somebody can piece that together, but it's like, inspect ourselves, that is where we can start. And there's the most power there. The most movement can happen there. Yeah.
Yeah, because we change judgment into compassion. We
Absolutely.
we change, just the critical approach to a loving approach.
Yeah.
That all has to change within us because it's the response. And our kids are going to give us crazy stuff. I mean, they
Yeah.
live in a crazy world. Um, and how are we going to respond to those things? We hate, the things that are going on in the world. We hate the things that they have to go through, but it doesn't mean we have to hate them.
Right.
Just what you're
Absolutely.
saying, it's so hard, and they're struggling through it too. And like you
Mhm.
said, can we be that safe person um, for them to come to? This is so much easier to change when they're young. But, what about parents who have kids, they've been going
Mm.
through this cycle and now they're like, "Oh my goodness, we have got to
Yeah.
change something." But I don't even know where to start. My child doesn't even feel safe with me anymore.
Mhm.
What
Mm.
advice do you have about that?
Well, first of all, it's never too late. I was just working
Yeah.
with a mom with a 16-year-old, and it was the same kind of thing. Like, I don't know. We have
Mm,
so much history, butting heads, and I have so
yeah.
many years of judging him and him judging me. Is this repairable? But I said, "Okay, let's start with you. It's
Mhm.
repairable, believe me, but maybe you can't believe me right now, and that's okay. Just take my confidence and borrow it for a little bit because I know this is possible."
Right.
And she was amazing because she really, really looked at her thoughts about her son, and she really
Mm,
could see how they were preventing her from seeing anything but all of the things that he was doing that were not what she wanted. Like, that's all her brain could
right.
see. And she started recreating her story of who he was on the inside, even if his behavior was not matching that yet. So she got super
Yeah.
clean. And then she was telling
Mm,
me about this time where um the the kids were kind of having a little bit of a fight. And she said, normally I would have just walked in there.
oh, we seem to have a lag in the
Oh, she said,
audio right.
are we back? Sorry, I
Oh,
don't know
yep.
what happened.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
She said, instead, I just thought, okay, I need to go in and do something. This isn't a safe place. So, like, safe thing that's
Mhm.
happening. So she went in and she did what she needed to do. But she's like, instead of saying anything to him about it, because normally I would say, these are the things that you shouldn't have been doing. She said, let's just review. They had some cameras. So she's like, let's just review the cameras. Um, and he watched it and she didn't say anything. And she's like, and she said, Jen, like, she had worked so hard on herself that she was able to just believe that he just wasn't thinking straight in the moment. It didn't excuse the behavior, but it did help her
Mhm.
find peace. Like, this is not who he is. He just, like all of us, he got something wasn't working, right? And he reacted.
Right.
And as he was watching the tape, he saw for himself that, oh my goodness, I
Mm,
didn't realize that's even how I was reacting. I didn't know that's what was happening. My perception was something
right.
different. And then she had to leave, and she's like, I didn't say anything. So when I come home, he's like had time to
Mm,
process and to really feel sorrow for what he did.
mm,
And there was an apology, like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that. And then
mm.
he started opening up about a whole bunch of other things that were really weighing heavy on him, that were really like just stressful.
Right.
And then he gave her a big hug at the end, and it was just,
Mm.
she was telling me this, and she's like, "What is happening?" You know? But and, like, it's crazy when our kids feel, and this wasn't, like, right out of the gate, right? We'd been working
Right.
together for
No.
a while,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
but it actually wasn't terribly far in either. It wasn't, like, years down the road. It was a few months in, but she was able to see that when I can just get a little bit more neutral, make sure everyone's safe, but be
Mhm.
neutral about it. I really don't know what's going on inside of my kids' heads. I don't walk with them
Right.
every
Yep.
moment of their life. I
Mhm.
don't know all the stresses. And I believe in their inner moral compass, that if they are allowed to
Mm.
get there, that they will get there and they will
Yeah.
understand what is right and wrong. Like, they know what's right and wrong. And we
Mhm.
talk about this when I teach parents, but the emotional trip that we take to get to that sorrow it's sometimes really fast and sometimes it's not really fast, but we start with like a mad defensive resistance. And if someone comes in and says, hey, that was really bad. You shouldn't have been doing that. Right. Our nervous system goes more into protection mode against the person that's saying the comments, which is often us as the parents. Now they're defending themselves against us because they're like, you're not safe either. I think I'm terrible and you think I'm terrible. I got to pretend I'm not terrible. I'm going to tell you I didn't, and they are so focused there that what we're preventing is for their nervous system and their emotional cycle to find its way to sadness and remorse. And so we interject that process, that emotional cycle process. And so when we can just be quiet or more quiet and less judgmental and truly be neutral in our beliefs about our child and allow them to start feeling their emotions more fully all the way through, we're not rushing their timeline to do that, then even these teenagers can start to find the sorrow, the regret, the remorse that sometimes is needed when they mess up or when they, maybe they say something to us and it's really unkind. And instead of saying, wow, why did you do that? You're so, that's not very kind. To be able to just say, oh, I can see this differently. I can say, hey, it's not, we don't say that, but I'm not getting defended and trying to I'm not in fight or flight against him. It gives him the chance to say, oh, that probably wasn't very kind. So it works with everybody, but it once again, it starts with us changing how we are relating to our kids. And so that story we have about our teen, if it's been a negative one for many years, we really have to start reframing that, because if we're thinking that they know they can feel it. They know that's what we're thinking about them. And they just are like, well, if the person who's supposed to love me the most thinks that about me, then I'm, subconsciously they start thinking, well, I must just be that person. So we have to believe, I call it beyond the behavior, so that they can start seeing who they really are. And even voice to them, I would say to one of my kiddos, I know what just happened. And that wasn't the nicest thing to say, but I know that's not who you are. I know deep down, if you were at your best, that's, not who you are. So this is the work. This is the work. It's so good, but it's truly, requires us to look inside. So
to look beyond the things that we're dealing with in the day to day. And it's hard because we get so caught up in it and so emotionally charged, like you said, and it involves all of us, from our nervous system to our thinking to even our schedules. It's like it throws everything out of whack. But yet to just trust in the process and yes, looking at ourselves first and how we lead through that it's a difficult process, and we have lots of ruts we have created that need to be retread.
Yes, new neural pathways need to be formed so that we can create a different experience for ourselves. For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. So your answer to that question, Nicole, who sent in a question ahead of time, was talking about her know-it-all 13-year-old. Would that be kind of the same answer you would give her? Is there any extra tips you have to add on to that?
Yeah, well, I'll just say, if it's specifically to the know-it-all, just start looking at that story you have about them. There's probably all the good reasons why you've compiled the story, and I'm not saying that there's not truth to some degree there, but it's almost like, do I want to be right, or do I want to be connected, or is that actually true? Is that really or is his know-it-all attitude because he's afraid to be wrong, because if he's wrong he might be judged, or maybe somebody one time said something to him and now he's got to have all of the answers. There's a reason why he has the know-it-all attitude. It's probably a defense mechanism of some kind. And so if we can use that as fuel for more compassion, not less, it's going to serve him. And I always say with kids, like, if they think they know it all, and I think I was one of these kids, to be honest. I was always like, I think I knew it, because I look back, I'm like, I was trying to prove something. I was trying to be enough. I was trying to be good enough. I was trying to be smart enough. I was trying to be noticed. I was the oldest of 7 kids. So it's like, or don't forget about me,
Right. Yeah.
There's so many reasons, but if we can just have it be more of a compassionate framework of how can I see this as evidence that he's struggling, and also just ask, like, tell me more. Like, sometimes it's like, if they know it all, it's like, really? And if we can do it in a non-sarcastic way, if we can say, like, really, like, tell me more. I'd love to, like, I didn't know that fact, or whatever you might say. Like, I would love to know more, and just see if the engagement can be in a regulated, calm, open space versus, oh my gosh, here he goes again, pretending like he knows all of the things, right? And the judgment and the resistance comes up. That's just going to perpetuate it. So we can be the change, as Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. So let me not be a reflection of what he's doing. Like, he knows it all. Well, I know he doesn't know it all. It's almost like we're saying like the same thing, just two sides of the same coin. Like, let me not be judgmental. So that's what I would say, is start with that, inspecting what's happening in this head of ours, because it's powerful. We can create almost anything we want if we put our mind to it. So
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That's great. I love that. If you're watching, I know we have quite a few viewers watching. If you have a question you want to add to the conversation, definitely put that in the feed wherever you're watching from. We're going live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch,
all the places.
YouTube, so lots of places. I don't know where you're watching from. Some places you can't actually put comments in, but if you're not and you want to ask a question, switch over to one of those other channels quick and put your question in. But otherwise, you can send them ahead of time. If you are on our newsletter that goes out once a week, we just send out what the broadcast is going to be about, and then ask you to submit your questions. So definitely subscribe to the newsletter too, and see who's coming up. But there's another question, and you've been talking a lot about the nervous system, and the other question was about sensory challenges and connecting with kids. This is huge, and I think a lot of people miss this, is that we have a nervous system, and our nervous system plays a huge, huge role. Can you talk about that, and just what parents need to be aware of, as well as what we can do to help that connection happen better with getting it regulated?
Yeah, great question. The nervous system is huge. I talk about it all of the time because it is such an important part of how we experience the world. And with homeschooling, if there's a sensory, and I don't know if specifically what the challenge is here, like, because there's so many, this could be a lot of different things. But I would be keenly aware of what the sensory challenge is, and really understand that this is their nervous system trying to protect itself. Like, so if it's I have a couple of people that I've worked with, like the hearing, like they're really sensitive to like sound. And so if the other kids are fighting or even talking very loud, the child who's extra sensitive really gets dysregulated and starts yelling. And so first and foremost, to just try to neutralize that in our own brain. Like, this is not something that he's making up or she's making up, and keep reminding ourselves of that. There's our ability to hold that belief will expand the more we practice it, just like anything else. So at first it might be 5 minutes of them saying, everybody quiet, and then maybe it can be 20, but then also just if we're homeschooling, one of the beautiful parts of that is we can cater to different needs of our kids. And I think that's such a great thing that we can do that. So if it is, I'm going with sound here, but if it's something else, apply it to that. But if it is sound, like we used to have the noise canceling headphones for certain ones of my kiddos who were sound sensitive, moving children in different parts of the room, even if that's tricky. We had a lot of piano practicing when my kids were little. So there was a lot of noise, and that was upsetting or just distracting to some kids, so we had to like navigate this. But I think first and foremost, just the more we can say, this is what they're telling me they can handle right now. And if they could do more, they would. How do I set them up for success? That's how I would recommend looking at it, is creating an environment where they can thrive. I guess going back to that seed analogy, right? It's really looking at, here's what they've come with, and there's nothing wrong with it. Can I just embrace it? And helping the other kids also understand that too,
that understanding,
which can be challenging. I was just talking to a mom who has a kiddo with a pretty significant challenge, like just a thing that she's working through that really impacts the other kids, and they're judgmental of her. And so there's this beautiful unfolding of teaching the other children that, it doesn't feel like it's fair, the way we've distributed things, but like it's the best she can do right now. And so, having conversations, but coming back to ourselves too, of like, is it a problem that they're this way? And if it is, just looking at ourselves. I don't know if there's more areas you want to explore into that more, but this is definitely a real thing. And I honor all the parents who are out there dealing with kids that have children with any kind of need that's outside neurotypical. It can be challenging, and to just be patient with ourselves too. I think sometimes as homeschoolers, we're so, not everybody, and if you're not this way, congrats, because this is awesome. But for me, it was just like, I wanted to do really well. I wanted my kids to hit the standard and didn't want them to fall behind. And so, ours
are in our community in general, they're all what we consider behind. And so that's a huge stress.
It's a huge stress. So then if you have like a kiddo with extra challenges, you're like, wait, I have all this responsibility to help you hit this standard, and you have this, this extra challenge, and I need to overcome that so that we can get you to this place. And what I would say is just relax, because this standard is just an arbitrary standard that someone created, and it's so different. The school system in England, it's totally different than ours. And I had a child that at 12 decided he wanted to study classical piano, really, really hardcore. And he took almost an entire year. I mean, we did a little bit, but he was practicing 6 to 8 hours of piano a day, which is insane, because he needed to catch up. But he was able to catch up with his piano and then jump back into school at 13, and he was fine. He caught up, because if our kids have the desire to learn, or if our environment's such that we can help them catch up, it happens. So I would just say, also be kind to ourselves as parents. If your kids have extra needs, they're going to be fine. What do they really need to survive out in the world? I'd say what they need more than anything is emotional resilience. Like if they can have emotional resilience and be able to recover from failure, to be able to handle challenging situations, like they're going to figure everything out. That, and maybe coupled with like a love for learning and an interest in things, so that they actually have this drive to go learn new things. They have their whole life. You were just saying you learned new skill at 48. I was like, oh yes, it's so important, like to remember it never ends, So
we aren't old dogs that will never learn new tricks.
Right. So if we need to go slow down because of sensory challenges, if maybe you spend a whole year just helping them learn coping skills that will allow them to function better in the world because of the sensory challenges they face, that is worth it. That is just as important as math or reading or anything else, because that's a lifelong skill that they'll have, that they can now carry on with them and live in this world, because we have to function in this world that we live in. And so we gotta work with what we have. So Yeah.
Do you have any tips for parents specifically when they are feeling over just the emotional overload, just to kind of reset? Because I know a lot of times we're like, I can't get away. I have kids that I have constant care, and I have no other caregivers. I mean, I hear this story all the time from our community, and they feel like because they can't get away, they can't just refuel themselves. And I think that's truly a lie. That there are ways for us to find that calm and that peace, even in the midst of the chaos. But what might they be able to do just to kind of find that?
Yes. This is a huge one. I remember cycling through this where it just felt like it was Groundhog's Day and I was never getting anywhere. But I would say find something that you love. Like find something that lights you up. And even if you can only do it 5 minutes a day, do it for 5 minutes a day. And enjoy for the sake of just doing it, like for no other reason than like, I love
Mhm.
this, I used to
Right.
listen to, I got on to, just listening to certain books that would just really like Charles Dickens, like lit me up, or like
Mm.
I was able
Mhm.
to listen to those. And even though that was way beyond what my kids were doing, that was really helpful.
Right.
Or I would go to yoga really early in the morning, or I'd walk, around the park, or I'd
Mhm.
just take a hot bath at night and ask my husband to please, can you cover for 5 minutes? But
Right.
really, I would ask too, like, why, like, why do I think I'm so overwhelmed and that this is not
Mm.
something that I enjoy anymore? Because we can do all of those things, walk and go to exercise or whatever, right? Take the hot
Yeah.
bath. And if our belief is that homeschooling or whatever, we'll stick with homeschooling since that's what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Uh-huh.
Homeschooling is overwhelming. Can I just start to say like, why? Why do I think it's so hard
Right.
and heavy right now? And
Yeah.
it could be a completely valid reason, but can I
Mhm.
understand that? And then can I, once I have that awareness, then can I start to see if I can start to choose something different? Or what do I
Mm.
need to change? Maybe it's
Right. Mhm.
some curriculum's not working and it's really stressful and the kids are pushing back on it. And I'm like, oh, that's why. Like, when did it change? Like, when did you shift from this
Oh,
is
yeah.
amazing? I
Mhm.
love this.
Right.
This fills me up. I
Uh-huh.
love being with my kids 24/7 to this is the drudgery and I hate it. Can you
Right.
figure out
Yeah.
what the shift is? And so
Mhm.
you're going to go mining for evidence and start questioning, like, what if I didn't believe that? When
Hmm.
did it used to feel really engaging? And, maybe it's we moved and I
Right.
lost my community. And so now it doesn't feel,
Mm.
the same. I don't have park days, with my homeschool moms that really were the light of my week, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but we have to take ownership for it. We really
Mhm.
do. And not blame, not guilt, no shame,
Yeah.
not saying any of that. But like, if
Mhm.
I can look and self-confront myself and say, okay, I'm just not creating a life I really enjoy right now. Why?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I guess we're circling back to this mindset,
Absolutely.
to the awareness,
Yeah.
because our brain is so powerful. Like, it really
Mhm.
is so powerful to find the things that support the stories we have. So if I don't like the story I have and it's creating overwhelm,
Mm.
what's a different way to look at it that will feel more
Right.
empowering? And even if that feels completely, or like there's no way, like that seems 20 years away from me right now. I can't even touch
Mhm.
that dream. It feels completely inaccessible. Well, what's the one thing I could do today, right, to help me get
Right.
one step closer to that? So,
Mhm.
and if anybody needs an inspiring story, go read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, because he
Hmm.
shows so well. He's in a concentration camp. He's
Hmm.
able to experience a concentration camp with all the horrors that it has with a perspective that is so inspiring. And he's not pretending he's not in the concentration camp. He's
Right.
not being ridiculous and saying this is the greatest thing ever, but he is able to see it in a light that's very empowering, that keeps him going, that allows him to be of service to the other people. And I remember reading that
Mhm.
book and thinking, okay, because I had my moments and I'd get low, that would be who I'd think of. And I'd say, if Viktor Frankl could figure out how to show up that empowered and that have that much ownership over how he functioned in his life in a concentration camp, I can figure it out here. And
Right.
um,
Yeah.
it was really inspiring. So the overwhelm
Yeah.
is real. I
Yep.
get it, but like,
Mhm.
it's not a productive energy. It's like, we want to notice it, we want to see it, and then we want to move into like productive action. And even if like we don't get where we want to go, like I have all these, I need to walk and I need to go to this group to,
Mhm.
whatever, all these things. It's even if I can't achieve that goal, the things I learned by trying to achieve it, the strategic byproducts that I
Hmm.
that I that I get out of just the journey to try to achieve that goal will help me move forward in my life. And even though the destination might be different, it's still going to be somewhere that I'm intentionally
Yeah.
creating for myself. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that, because yes, we can't change so many of our circumstances, and
Mm-mm.
the things that we often do to change them are based out of our fear and are try to control,
Right.
just like you were talking about at the very beginning.
Right.
And that just leads us into a deeper place where we don't want to be where we are,
Yeah.
and we don't see it for the beauty that it could have. Not that
Absolutely.
it's always, sunshine and roses, but
Nope,
there
not at all.
there are celebrations to be had still, and moments that we miss because we're not looking for them. And
Absolutely.
how
Yeah,
much
absolutely.
better to have our eyes on those things.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so yeah.
agree. Yeah, I call it controlling my controllables. It's like I don't have control over
Yes.
99% of my life, but what do I have control over? When I wake up, what
Mm,
I eat, when I go to sleep, and like if you can make a list of the things you do
right.
have control over, it
Mhm.
really is helpful. I remember sitting up one day, thinking, I'm so overwhelmed. What is happening? Everything's falling apart. I was catastrophizing. I think focusing on all the things I didn't have control over. And when I made that, okay, what do you have control over? It was a lot of things. Like I had my list of what I had control over was a lot longer than I was giving myself credit for.
Mm,
And that was really encouraging for me.
yeah,
And say, I'm going
yeah.
to put all my energy here because if I put all my
Mhm.
energy in the things I don't have control over, it's just wasted energy.
Right.
It's been in my wills. So
Mhm.
everybody can do that.
Yes.
Make a list that you have control over. I call it my
Right.
controlling my controllables list. I have
Mm.
to do that from time to time to remind
Yeah. Yeah,
myself.
well, it changes too, and
Yeah,
but yes, it's good and then you have to cut back every time because we
absolutely.
we believe we can control so much.
Yeah, no, it's really
And yet
all the
not
things are
really.
just you.
Yeah.
Just all about what you can do. Really, you don't get to control anybody else.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your website, your podcast, and your book.
Yeah, they're all named the same thing, which is Connect Method Parenting. I try to keep it super simple. Oh, thank you for putting the
Uh-huh.
website up. Yeah, my book is that same name on Amazon. My podcast is Connect Method Parenting on all the places you can get a podcast. And it's really
Awesome.
just to get the word out about the power of connecting over correcting, of leveraging
Right.
relationships and
Mm,
attachment to impact and influence our kids in a positive, meaningful way that allows them
right.
to fulfill their potential. It's my passion. I
Mm,
absolutely love it. And it's so fun to see someone step into that and to decide to take that leap of faith. Like, okay, I'm
right.
hearing what other people are saying, so I guess I'm going to go for it. And just to say, wow, like I really didn't understand
Mm,
how much could be done, and how many
right.
tools I could just lay aside if I just
Mm,
was able to come with so much more compassion, firmness is needed, cleaning up my thoughts, investing in
right.
that relationship, because ultimately our kids have to choose us. They really do have
They
to choose us
do.
to be their leader,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
this sets us up to do that. And so that's what I get to teach people, and it's
That's
really
beautiful.
it's really beautiful and an honor,
Yeah.
truly.
Mhm. So I will put this website, connectmethodparenting.com. I'll put the link in the show notes so you can click on that
Thank
if you're not
you.
watching, don't want to figure out how to spell it, or just want to make it easy.
Thank
So I'll
you.
definitely do that for you. And then the book goes more in depth of just
Yep.
kind of your experience and
Yeah, and all the
research.
framework, like, I lay out as much as
Yeah.
I can in a book, and you can get on Audible too. I recorded an audio of it, so if you're more of a listener, I'm definitely more of a listening
Mm.
book kind of girl as I'm doing all my things, so you can get it there too. But yeah, it just goes into all of the things that we've talked about today, but in much more depth. And there's
Cool.
at the end of most of the chapters, there's, like a little worksheet. Obviously it's in the book, so
Mm,
you
mhm.
write it right in the book, but like questions to ask and to implement it,
Right.
because it's one thing to know, like that's great, but like it's really the doing
Yes.
that makes the difference. That's how
Mhm.
we create the new neural pathways. That's how we learn
Yeah.
to regulate our nervous system. And so I tried to pack in as much implementation into the book as well. And then yeah, and then in my program I even go deeper and we go more hands-on, but
Okay.
the book is a
Yeah.
great place
Yeah.
to start. In the podcast I go into just all things connect with the parenting as well. So
Okay. Wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful. So
Yes.
yeah. So definitely check out Andee on connectmethodparenting.com, and
Thank you. Yeah.
then her book as well as her podcast. And you can find all that information on your website too. I'm
Yep.
so yeah. Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, and what you had to share has me thinking of some things. My
Good.
guests always challenge me, so that's always good. But we're never done parenting. I
Never.
have 3 adults, and it is still a challenge. And you think you have control, and you get less and less every year. So
I love it. Yeah, I have adult kids too as well. So yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
Absolutely. So
Well, thank
yeah,
you.
well, I appreciate it. And for all of you, the next episode of Empowering Homeschool Conversations will actually launch our all new Empowering Homeschool Conversations show. We're going to do a pre-recorded conversation next week with my 4 new co-hosts, and we're going to talk about homeschool fails redeemed by God's grace. You do not want to miss this, and you do not want to miss the new show. We got a whole new intro. One of my co-hosts just said, this is like the View for homeschoolers. So it's going to be lots of fun. It's going to kind of seem like a little bit about a party, but we're going to dive into some deep subjects, still have guests on, amazing guests like Andee, and just continue to have conversations, but also to really hit some hot topics that we as a group are going to address. And so some of those hosts will also be hosting the show as well. I'll be the main host, but there'll be other voices that will be coming into this conversation. So we just want to empower you and equip you and help you to homeschool your diverse learner the best way that you can. So thank you again, Andee. I really appreciate your time and the wisdom you've had to share, and just for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Till then, God bless and take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This is Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool. Go to spedhomeschool.com to get resources and support for teaching your unique learner at home.